Hello, everyone, and welcome to this session on working in special educational needs settings. For many of you here today, you may have wondered if working in SEN is actually for you and what it's like to work in SEN and if you would be any good at it. In this session, we aim to help answer those questions for you. Let me start by introducing myself. My name is Vicky Gould. I'm an advisor for Zen Educate. I'm also an associate tutor for Edge Hill University and a primary English consultant for NASBIT. And I have the pleasure of working as a specialist leader of education across primary schools here in the Northwest. And this evening, it's a pleasure to be your host. Today we're joined by Lisa Thornley. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Vicky.
And Lisa's here to actually shed some light on what it is truly like to work in SEN and the skills required to succeed within the role. I have to say, Lisa has extensive experience working in SEN schools, both as a teacher and as a TA. And she's then went on to become a Senko for Lewisham Council. And she is now a SEN consultant and safeguarding advisor for Zen Educate. So thank you so much, Lisa, for this for joining us.
No, thank you for having me.
This evening and welcome. The way the session's going to work is we're going to ask Lisa a series of questions throughout the event, but please feel free as guests to get involved. If you have any questions or any queries or you're curious about anything, please feel free to ask questions throughout the event. And at the end of the questions, there will be a moment of you asking questions as well. So plentiful opportunity for you to get involved this evening. So without further ado, Lisa, tell me, what were you doing before you worked in SEN?
So I was actually a jobbing actress in the Northwest and did a few sort of plays here in London as well. And then I sort of married that with working, obviously. And I got a job at the Royal Exchange Theatre and I worked in the box office and I worked in the drama department whereby you would go into the schools when they were doing a play and you would support the drama teachers basically in year 10 and year 11. And then I trained then to be a teacher for drama. So it sort of gave me the bug, really, going into schools. And I thought I'd really like to do this. But I trained initially as a further education teacher. So I really wanted to sort of do A level and beyond. And then part of, obviously, your placement, I did my placement working with in special needs, but predominantly with boys aged 15 to 21. And I was then offered a permanent position after that placement. So I remained there for about nearly 3 years. And in that time, I devised curriculum packages in drama, and I helped the establishment where I was working to gain accreditation for delivering and gaining NVQ3 for those boys, so that when they left, they were then able to pursue something within drama, which was great for them. And that actually made me feel sort of quite chuffed that they were leaving with an accreditation, which then in the mid-90s was pretty rare. So I suppose I specialised then, looking back, in making lesson plans and curriculum packages around social stories and expressive improvisation. And I really enjoyed using masks and poetry and music And during that time, I had no more than 12 boys in my class with a TA. Um, and on the whole, I would say that the majority of the boys, about 90% of them, were not fluent in reading and writing. So, as you can imagine, um, my journey from, I suppose, being an actress to sort of being in that environment um, was quite daunting, but incredibly exciting, really.
So, is it safe to say it wasn't really a conscious decision
No,
back then that you actually wanted to embark on this journey?
yeah, definitely not conscious. I think I've always felt that drama, and I'm sure maybe our panel would either challenge me on this, but I think drama, any art, drama, music, writing, painting is a really wonderful way in to get needs met through an expressive form where you actually don't really need to speak at all. And so you're absolutely right. I think it was just like, oh gosh, I'm actually delivering drama, but I'm actually breaking down barriers to learning
Areas? Yeah.
without even sort of. I mean, now that obviously now I talk like that all the time, but then I didn't get in my car and drive home and go, "Oh, I've just broke down a barrier for
Mm.
for learning." I just thought that that boy came into the classroom sad and left happy. That's how I used to sort of feel about it.
Amazing.
Whereas now we talk about, removing barriers to learn, how we can do that, and and levels and all of those sort of things. So yeah, I didn't.
Amazing.
Yeah, I didn't consciously think.
Thank you very much. So going back to your experience with those boys, and you talked about, that many of them didn't have the very basics in maths and English. How
Mm.
did you feel about that?
Well, it was very hard at the beginning. I mean, it's easy to say now, oh, it was really rewarding, but I found it very hard because I think we're so programmed in schools to think that they have to do English, they have to do math, they have to do it this way. And so I think the challenges were removing those preconceptions of how children learn. So it was about thinking out of the box. And ultimately, as well, Vicky, it was about connection. And I didn't think about that again at the time. Now I've devised a presentation, as you know, about connection before correction. And now I really know where it comes from. But at the time, it was really important to understand those boys' behaviours in terms of emotional literacy, their understanding and their limitations of how. So, say, for example, if they erupted in a class, it was about understanding where that eruption came from. And 9 times out of 10, it came from frustration of not understanding what the lesson was about. They couldn't read it. They couldn't also understand. So I had to slow down, small chunks, use my whiteboard better than I was doing, checking in the morning. How are you? How's your weekend been? And not just differentiating the lesson plans, but differentiating the behaviour.
Mm,
So, treating them in terms of, respect,
yeah,
really, straight away. So,
that
yeah,
connection, the connection's so important.
so important. So
Absolutely.
important. Yeah.
So, we may have answered this question, but I will ask it. Why did you then choose to, embark on this journey and work with SEN?
Well, I initially going back to the sort of, I suppose, the job in actress bit, I always gravitated towards theatre and education.
Yeah.
I always gravitated towards that. And where there's never any money, obviously, but but that's what I loved, theatre and education. So when I was at university in my third year, I did a placement at Fulbourn Hospital in Cambridge, which is actually a mental health unit for adults, and they specialise in talking therapies and art therapy and music therapy. And I met a guy who was a drama therapist, and I had the privilege of being in some of his workshops. And I watched him with the patients in the hospital, and it was just amazing how the creative and emotional outlet, like I said before, from the drama therapy, so from the use of drama tools to the use of therapeutic tools coming together, so inquiry based learning, talking therapies, that type of structure enabled those, again, removing barriers to learning, enabled the teaching to become more nurturing and facilitating. So it wasn't that sort of classic teacher stands at the front, this is the expectation. It was more around, this is the lesson, and it doesn't matter if it goes on the motorway, the B road, the A road, it doesn't matter. You know, the structure's there, but we can do what we like within that structure. And what was so lovely was that there was a structure to it, but they were allowed to omit their own thoughts and feelings and their own narrative into it. And so that's how they obviously, how it supported their depression, and you know, their chronic illness, really. So yeah, that's kind of why I chose it. The bug hit me in my third year at university. But at that point, I'm not sure how old you need to be now to train to be a drama therapist, but at that point you had to be 25 and over. Because when you train to be a drama therapist or any therapist, you have to do about 70, 80 hours of therapy yourself. So I should imagine that the criteria then was sort of, well, you know, at 21, you don't necessarily know what you know at 25, 26, maybe. Um,
Do that, it really does demonstrate from what you've just told us that that drama therapist had such an impact on you.
yeah.
And sometimes it just takes that one person to be that inspiration.
Yeah.
And it's just fascinating that's where it all
Oh,
kind of
yeah,
started.
definitely. If you see, you know, a really good, I mean, I'm not a primary school teacher, as you know, I'm a trained secondary school teacher. But what was bizarre about my journey coming to London was that I was a deputy head of inclusion in a primary school. So when I used to go and observe teachers in the classroom to support with their SEN and that graduated responsive need with the child, the goosebumps I would get from a really good classroom teacher, I'd think, oh gosh, I really want to be a primary school teacher, you know. So you're absolutely right. It's really sort of, it's that person, isn't it, that
Yeah,
ignites that sort of fire in your belly, as they say.
absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah.
And that was really useful. Thank you, Lisa. So, what was your first experience like in a SEN school?
Ooh. Well, I mean, again, with, you know, hindsight, it was incredible, really. And I realise now what I was doing in terms of really thinking out of the box. Um, and I struggled, really struggled. The first month was so hard. I mean, I was only pretty young myself, you know, and you look back and I remember I sort of, I made very conscious decisions of how I would, you know, greet them at the door, and you know, my whole behavior management changed overnight. I think that's one of the first things. I took real charge of the classroom. My TA was amazing. You know, we had a really good connection. She always set up the classroom for me, and everything was labelled, and you know, all of those sort of things, when I look back, were amazing. But I knew that I wasn't quite connecting with them in terms of drama and English. So I knew at that point I was establishing a very positive relationship with them that was safe and that was boundaried. But I didn't feel that they were actually going away thinking, this is what I've learned today about, you know, Shakespeare, or, you know. So what I decided to do was, I really, my guilty pleasure is lots of different sort of music. So I was driving home one night and the song "Stand" from Eminem came on, which I'm now showing my age, but I loved it, and I thought, right, I'm going to do a lesson plan around just the lyrics of this music. I'm just going to take a couple of sentences, maybe, one or two things, and that is basically what I did. So I played the song for the boys that obviously couldn't read, but I also did not dis. I didn't bring sort of literature. I didn't remove it, because the whole point is that you want them to learn. So I then sort of cut out sentences of the song and put them on the floor. And so when the music was sort of in them, they would either grab the piece of paper that they were nearest, or if they could read, they would read it and grab the piece of paper. And of course, sort of, and the song "Stan" is about attachment, it's about relationships, it's about sort of losing things in your life and your needs not being met. And what was quite interesting about those lessons was that they then started to talk about their journey as boys. And, quite a few of them have been involved in children's social care and neglect and all of that. So I then decided to actually do Shakespeare with them. And I'm so glad I did it, because it it was scary, but it was absolutely amazing. And I've still got all their work. I can't, it's with me. And so I basically I use the Seven Ages of Man, which is the monologue from As You Like It, and obviously the Seven Ages of Man talks about infancy, being born, infancy, um, you know, your childhood, and then your adulthood, then old age, and then death. So we then created individual collage books. So I brought in loads of magazines, newspapers, paints, pens, everything, and they built a collage book, and it was their collage book. And then from that, we developed a poem, and I brought a playwright in from the Library Theatre in Manchester. And then we devised a song, and I brought in a couple of musicians from Manchester and Liverpool. And then we got rid of the Shakespeare, completely got rid of it. And we devised a 30-minute production called The Growth of a Boy. And it was about their stories intertwined, rooted in this poem and rooted in music. And we performed that for the families and the other boys, and it was absolutely amazing. And it was 30 minutes, and the song was played on the radio, on Manchester City Radio, and it was fab. It was hard, it was challenging, but the rewards were just phenomenal. And I really mean that, Vicky. It was phenomenal. And about half a dozen of those boys went on to college, went on to study drama, write, everything. I mean, I obviously have no idea what they're doing, but I think that the point was that every single member that played a part in those lessons for that term, for those 3 months, left with an improvement of emotional literacy, understanding, reading and writing.
Fantastic.
All of them.
Amazing.
And
amazing.
Brilliant, yeah.
And thank you to Fatima for posting a question. She's asking, what are the challenges that you face working with SEN children?
I think if I sat here, Fatima, and said to you that it wasn't, that the challenges were not rooted in behaviour, I wouldn't be telling you the truth. But I think what we need to remove ourselves from is that behaviour is not scary. Behaviour is telling us something, whether it be really big behaviour, angry, what presents as angry, or behaviour that's incredibly inward, that we would name as sad. And one of the things that I've learned from working with SEN boys and girls, is that they will often say, I am angry. And what we need to unpick is why. And they will often then, the more you ask why, the more that they will actually reside in saying to you things like, I'm sad, I'm confused, I don't understand. So the biggest challenge is you not being frightened of challenging a child. And I don't mean that in any other way other than with connection, with verbal sensitivity, with warmth, with empathy, with tools that, let's sit down, let's write this, let's do this. One of the best strategies that I use, and I still use it, is the Cartman triangle strategy, which is, it's known as the drama triangle, but it's used in lots of different ways, and it's thought, feeling, behavior. So when you are talking to a child, it's really important that you can say to them, just tell me, what are you thinking right now? What are you thinking right now? And they might say to you, I don't belong in that classroom. I don't want to go in that classroom. And you will say to them, what are you feeling when you say to me you don't want to go in that classroom? I'm feeling sad. So their behaviour is that they want to get out of that classroom. So that's the challenge. How do you get them back in to remove the sadness and to get them to feel part of that classroom? And that's what it is. It's thought, feeling, behaviour. You ask yourself, how am I feeling now listening to this? So therefore, what am I thinking? What am I feeling? So therefore, what's my behaviour? Do I want to stay and listen to Lisa, or do I want to knock it off? What is it about what she's saying that is not connecting with me? Or what is it about what this workshop is about that I am really connecting with? So it's really important, I think, to think very simply. I talk about the 3 S's, which is, strategies, struggles, um, strengths, struggles, and strategies. So, what are the strengths of the child? What are the struggles of the child? And what are the strategies that the school use and that also you can bring in? So it's really important to say to a class teacher or a TA, oh, hi, I'm working with Lisa today. Could you tell me what her strengths are? Oh, yeah, Lisa really loves singing. You can then adapt that into how you support that child. When they want breaks, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll go around the playground and we'll sing some songs. The struggles or the strengths might be that actually they love cars. So the struggle is that they're not very they don't engage very well with maths. So what you would do is you would bring in some little cars, maybe, or ask them the parent carer to bring in some cars, and you'd introduce that into the lesson, and that is also then referred to as a strategy.
Yeah.
So within that strategy, all you've done is use the strength of the child to adapt to the struggle. And those are the things that, I hope I'm not waffling now, Fatima, but, those are the things that we think we can't do because we think of the fear first. And it's not about fear, it's about removing what we perceive to be, their challenge. And it isn't. It's our challenge because it's something that we've never worked with. So that's what I would suggest. It's just about working with them in a very empathetic, humanistic way, really.
Absolutely. I mean, behavior in any form is a form of communication.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking here, if you are incorporating that individual likes and interests within the learning experience, it must have such an impact. And also, in terms of the broader sense, that kind of personalized learning, I suppose the families of the children that you work with will just be super sort of grateful for that effort.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting you should hit on that, because I think one of the really poignant things about being an SEN TA or teacher is that you have a contextual approach towards the child. So, we talk about multi-agencies, but actually the best agency for a child is their parent carer 9 times out of 10. And so, it's about connecting with the families, and about saying to them, hey, when he arrived at the gate this morning, you handled that, meltdown really, really well. Can I observe that tomorrow morning? Can I observe how you do the transition from the gate to and they feel really honoured that because if you think about it, a parent that has a child that's got special needs, they already feel different. And it's about us making them feel what the word says, special, because they are. They're not special different, they're special. So we can learn from them. And you're absolutely right. That's the relationship, and that's what gives you a really sort of fuzzy feeling about working in SEN, because you're connecting all the time. And that
Absolutely.
connection's about the improvement for the child. Mm.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you. So, what would you say, Lisa, was the moment, sort of the light bulb moment when you knew you wanted to commit to SEN?
I mean, I've moved from SEN to mainstream, so I have worked in mainstream, um, but I wanted to commit to SEND because when I was in mainstream, it was so sort of grade success rooted,
Yep.
and I really miss sort of, I suppose, the holistic approach to a child, which I think actually now culturally we're shifting more towards that. We are recognising that emotional intelligence is just as important as an A grade. If a child has got leaves school with, a 4 or a 5, but they have got that emotional intelligence, that resilience, on the whole, compared to a child that is push to an 8 or a 9. But in the meantime, they've lost sight of who they are, what they want, their dreams. And in SEN, I suppose you're given more reflective practice as a practitioner. The training as an SEN is phenomenal, even better now. When I've come to London and I've got the honour of working here for Zen Educate and going into schools like Paddock and Swiss Cottage and the Village, the training that the TAs get, which is not, in the afternoon when the children go home one day, earlier in the afternoon, in particular at Swiss Cottage, the teachers stay behind and they get absolutely amazing workshops and presentations and training that's also accredited. So I think your professional development is richer. It was for me anyway. And that's obviously what sort of led me to, just keep going because of the SEN. So I think it's because it's holistic. It's just it doesn't feel so sort of, I suppose, segregated. It is what it is. It's special, and no day is the same as well. So it's interesting. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Tell me, Lisa, how long did it take for you to get a long-term role, a long-term position?
I mean, I suppose I was quite lucky because I did my placement at where they said, we would like to keep you and would you like to interview? So in that respect, I suppose my journey from doing my FE PGCE led me sort of quite, easily into that role. But and then after that role, I then went to work in a really sort of lovely secondary school in Blackburn, mainstream. And it took me about 3 more attempts after that to then go back into SEN where I remained. So I went then to work in a Peru and so forth and etc. Um, and I think one of the reasons for that was because I also didn't maintain, I suppose, my own personal self development. So I thought, oh, I'm in a mainstream school, you know, and I suppose in a way, I don't mean to sort of ridicule myself, but I suppose I'm showing my age in a way. In terms of, I know it's very different now because I do have the beauty of going into mainstream schools and being a deputy head here in London not so long ago. I've only been here at SEN for a year. So, you know, I know it's very different now. And I set up an inclusive uh, SEMH unit in Wandsworth. But I think then my thought process was that um, I wanted to stay in SEN, but I had perhaps not um, kept up with my own professional development. Sort of, I suppose, reading, which then they didn't have a code of practice, but, reading about special needs, differentiation was the word then, all of those sort of things, scaffolding, chunks, vocab, all of those. So it took me a little while. I will be honest, not like years. It took me, about 3 attempts. And I think that for our audience is just about just upskilling yourself. So, don't be frightened of Googling sort of the SEN code of practice. It's really easy to read. It's very, very simple. To break it down for you, it's in 3 waves, which is the first wave is high quality teaching. So everybody in every school delivers high quality teaching across the board. Wave 2 is bespoke for a child who is demonstrating possible needs that can cover from autism, ADHD, dyslexia, oppositional disorder. And so what a school would do is they'd bespoke some classes around that particular child, either one-to-one or group. And then the third wave is, right, here we're beginning to really recognise that there's a pattern. So the third wave is that the SEN code and the teacher and the TA work together, and you get consent from the parent to follow a plan in terms of an educational psychologist review, sometimes a paediatric review if it's not been done in wave 2. So it's just about you educating yourself a little bit sort of clearer. And also, don't forget that, if you're registered with us, I'm really very happy to talk to you. So if you're really interested in SEN and, you finish this call and you've got your fire in your belly like I had a long time ago and still do, I'm really happy to talk to you, because I think the comment that you made before, Vicky, you do need someone to metaphorically hold your hand and keep, that energy going in you. And I'd like to think that, I can do that for our candidates, really.
Thank you very much. It truly is when you're sort of going down that journey of exploring the needs of the child. It really is a team effort, isn't it?
Mm, absolutely. Sort of, I think that's one of the things I love working with TAs because I know how important they are. Um, and and that's it. I'm not even going to pontificate about that. They're very important for you to be able to effectively teach and effectively communicate to those pupils, because the TAs just have that sort of they just have that connection with the child that's very different to yours as a teacher who's in the staff room at 8:30 getting the briefing and they're on the playground at 8:30. So they're already talking to the parent about their weekend or the night before, or they're already seeing things very, very differently to the teacher. And that's why that TA and teacher relationship is really important.
Crucial.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Mm.
Fabulous. Thank you very much, Lisa.
Mm.
What would you say then has kept you in SEN?
Um, Definitely the pupils that you meet. they're phenomenal. Warmth springs to mind. There is a warmth in SEN schools. And there is a warmth, exactly what you said, from parents. They really value you, and that is really lovely. It's the warmth and it's the holistic approach. And that's the thing that sort of keeps me going, because it's interesting, isn't it? Sort of during, lockdown, I hate to mention it, but I think we learned so much about the importance of connection. And that is what is just very important in SEN schools, that connection that you have. So you actually don't need to arrive at an SEN school, with, amazing lesson plans and all these sort of things. You need to have empathy, sensitivity, fun, engagement, be proactive, roll your sleeves up, get in there. And those are all skills that actually, when a teacher or a head teacher or, senior leadership team see that, they go, oh, I really like this person and I really want to keep them, but not I just want to keep them, I want to develop them. So that's the interesting thing about SEN. So for me, it was the speed of how quickly I developed, and I enjoyed that. And the team, there's some great. I think you've just got to have a little bit of a wicked sense of humour to do SEN. Maybe it appealed. So yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for that, Lisa.
Okay.
Okay, so I would now like to invite any of our guests to ask questions. Please feel free, we'll put you off mute or pop them in the Q&A section. Either way, it's absolutely fine.
Oh, right.
Hi.
Hi there. You
Hi,
okay? Do you have a question for us?
Yes, hi. My name is Mihaela, and let me tell you a short introduction.
Yeah.
Last year, I finished my DET. I've done health and social care. I've done health and social care management for level 4 and 5. I've done my bachelor degree in health and social care. And last year, I finished my DET. So I've been 4 years in school. So I started working with SEN children this year. Because it was COVID, I was so nervous. I didn't want to go. So this year, I started applying for the jobs. So my first job, it was in a secondary school with a high-risk child. So now I'm in the second job. I start in May till the end of school, 21st of July. So in this school, primary school, I try to apply for a job. So everyone said to me, come on, you have to apply. So I applied for the job. Last week, I've been called in the office and they said to me, because I don't have enough experience, they can't take me, which it was a little bit like, oh. I just want to shout, cry. I was so upset, if I can use the proper words. And I said, why? Because I know I don't have enough experience, but I've been working with this child for nearly 3 months. I know the child. I know I don't know him better, but I know the child. I know the parents. I know how he behaves in class. So the school said to me, no. So I didn't have the chance to say to the head teacher, I said, okay, so you're going to take someone else. Maybe it's going to take another 2 or 3 months. The child is going to lose so much again.
Yeah.
They have to know him. They have to know the parents. They have to know the school, everything. So everything is going to start from zero with him. So I don't know, maybe you can give me an advice or how I can, I don't know, how can I approach them and let them to give me a chance?
Oh.
I know maybe it's too much, but I cannot get experience if no one gives me a chance.
Yeah.
Which is, honestly, I just want to cry.
I think this is for you because of your sort of, your what you do basically. I mean, I know what I want to say, but I think I'm gonna pass this to you.
Um, I think it's really important to, well, but clearly your passion is in, your heart is in the right place. And it is really important that that child has consistency and that
Yeah,
the individual looking after them truly knows that child's needs. And it does concern me that there will be a lack of consistency. I'm talking from a professional perspective and also a personal perspective. So my son has an EHCP. He's severely autistic, and he has a full-time one-to-one who I insist will take care of him throughout his primary years, and that's been agreed by the school. I mean, in terms of your position, it could be that you perhaps go to the class teacher or somebody who's less senior to have that conversation to make make your opinions known, and that actually you are thinking about the best interest for the child, not particularly for your
yeah,
own professional gain.
yes, yes.
Lisa, have you got anything else?
Yeah, and I think I concur with that, but I think I would also just say, again, go back to those 3 S's that I gave you. What are
Yes.
my strengths? So could you tell me what my strengths are? What you saw as my struggles, so my barriers to getting the job, and what strategies would you recommend that I go away and develop? So, for example, I might say to you, there's a fantastic book out there, and it's by Sarah Alston, spelled Sara. So she may pronounce it as Sarah. Sorry, Sarah. So Sarah Alston, and it's about the inclusive practice classroom rooted in strategies for teaching assistants in particular. That is a brilliant book. So it's very easy to read, Michaela, and I would recommend you read that. And I think without knowing the school and the child, I think that's where I would go. So when I've not got a position, I think Vicky's right. I've never gone from a place of, sort of, what about this? What about that? I think it's about just stepping back, because
Yes.
we all have to sort of grieve something at some point. So like you say, you were upset, but now actually you've said to yourself, I really want to work in SEN. So
Yes.
what do I need to do to improve? So it was a bit like myself in my first position. I knew that instantly I needed to improve my behaviour management. Now, someone might say, well, that's not SEN. It is. So, your behaviour management is the pulse test at the door. They line up, they come in, there's a routine, there's an order, they know what's coming next. So it's about absolutely knowing all of that. And that is how I would approach it. So I just ask them, could you tell me what my strengths are, what you see as my struggles, where I need to improve, and what strategies would you recommend that I go and have a look at?
Yeah, use it as a learning opportunity, a learning point for yourself to go and get that feedback and then reflect and move forward.
Yeah.
Thank you
for your
very much.
question.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we do have another question, Lisa. One of the guests has asked, how do you support a child who is in distress?
I was just typing then, sorry, the name of the book.
Oh, thank you.
No, it's all right. It's called Inclusive Classroom. And I'm sure Sarah won't mind me saying it is specifically, I think, written for that TA-teacher relationship. It's very, very good. Sorry, say that question again. My fault.
I will. Thank you for that recommendation. That's really useful. Thank you. So one of the guests has asked, how would you support, or how could you support a child who is in distress?
Yeah, so again, just think about the thought, feeling, behaviour. So you are in a corridor with a distressed pupil. They are telling you something, so they're telling you that they are distressed through their body language. If you think about, an adult with an adult, you would say, I can see. So you wouldn't say, I can see you distressed or anything. You might say something to them. I can see that you're upset. And I can see that you will need some support. I'm here to support you. I'm not going to step any nearer to you. So always remain physically detached. Never walk towards a child. Never attempt to hug them or hold them or anything. Even in here, you want to, don't. Because it can be misconstrued, misinterpreted, all those sorts of things. And if they're sat on the floor, I know it's a really obvious thing to do, but sit on the floor. So mirror, not necessarily mirror what they're doing, because if they're screaming, then you don't want to mirror that. But if they're sat on the floor and they're holding themselves, sit on the floor and look at them. I can see that you're really upset. By holding yourself, I can see that you're really upset. In a minute, what I'm going to be asking you is just, what are you thinking at this moment in time? What can Miss or what can Mr. do for you? What can I do for you? And pause.
Thank you very much. Really useful strategies there.
Just pause. Yeah. I think, one of the things I learned as a drama therapist, because I'm a chatterbox, is John Catton, who was my therapist, said to me, I'll never forget it. He said to me, Lisa, sometimes in the pause, you learn what somebody needs.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Just pause, go with them.
Thank you very much. And then we have a question here, and it says, do I need an educational background to become or work with SEN?
Yeah.
And Lisa, if you don't mind, I'm just going to respond to that briefly. For me, whether in SEN or mainstream, as long as you are a people's person and you are able to make those crucial connections on an emotional level with the children in your care, you're able to form those trusting relationships so that every child feels valued and supported and feel that you are truly there for them. If you have those qualities in your character, that's what matters most, because everything else you can learn with experience. Those qualities are inbuilt within you as a person. So as long as you are able to form those close relationships truly and be part of that team, as I said, everything else will come with time. So to answer your question, from my perspective, do you have to have been in education to work with SEN? No. Should you be proactive in doing that personal research and finding out and gaining an understanding of the range of conditions? Yes. Are you the right person to work with children as long as you're great at forming relationships? The answer is yes. And I hope I've answered that question. Lisa, have you got anything to add?
No, definitely not. That's exactly what I would say. Like I said before, sensitivity, proactiveness, engaging. Yeah, people person. Brilliant.
Absolutely. And then we just have another question here. It says, does the strategies that you talked about before, Lisa, with a child in distress, does it apply to children who are under 8? This guest here says she works with a 6-year-old, and when he's in distress, she kind of feels lost.
Gets lost. Yeah, I think it's really important to just question why you get lost as well. So, this is my drama therapy head coming in. Quite often we take into a situation our own emotion. So quite often when we see a child distress, especially an SEN child, in terms of the qualities that we, like Vicky was just saying, we want a people person, empathetic, you're going to have a bit of a lump in your throat. What you need to do is check in, absolutely check in, and just basically very, 10 seconds of, right, breathe. This is about the child, and I have got to just take control of this situation. So when the child is lost, you have not to mirror that loss. You've got to take the rope, take the anchor, and keep them steady and hold them. So with a 6-year-old, you would say things like, I can see that you're upset. Am I right? What would you like me to do? Do you want me to sit down with you? And they might say, no, I want you to go away. And what you would say is, I can't go away, but I can sit here.
Yeah.
I can't go away because you look sad. So I'm going to sit here. And that's all it takes. It literally is just about thinking how you would deal with your friend in a way. Somebody said something to me very interesting last week in a special needs school in Manchester. And she's actually like Vicky. She lectures at Manchester University, etc. And she said to a TA, if your partner came home and threw their bag on the sofa and then walked out and slammed the door, you would not say, excuse me, would you mind getting out of the house, please, and come back in when you're ready? And it really tickled me, because I thought that's how we speak to our pupils. Excuse me, can you go out, please, out of the classroom and come back in when you're ready? When actually that is communication. They've had a really bad day. So what you would say to your partner is you'd open the door and you go, do you want a cup of tea?
Yeah.
Is everything all right? What's happened? And it's the same. It's not, obviously, you wouldn't say that to, but I think the point that I'm making is they're human beings, and there is a way to speak to a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old, an 8-year-old, a 15-year-old. And quite often it is all the same. I can see, what would you like me to do? What strategies can we do to solve this together?
Really good advice there. Thank you, Lisa. And thank you to our guests for all of those questions. I hope you found this event useful. And if working in a SEN school sounds like something that you might be interested in, there are several advantages to it. First of all, it's a role that's incredibly in high demand, with the highest rates of any TA job, where good candidates very quickly get offered long-term contracts. Working in SEN schools also requires less teaching experience, whilst also offering a rich on-site training and support package. So if you would like to make a start in your education and learn the cutting edge techniques of behaviour management, a SEN school can be a great place to start your career. I just wanted to say a huge thank you to Lisa. Thanks for your preparation and for your time and for your insightful knowledge. Really have enjoyed it. And thank you to everybody, all the guests who've joined our webinar this evening. We will be sending out this recording, so please watch out for that. We will email it out. And also, please watch out for any of our posts around the social media. So we have a Twitter and Facebook post pages. So please watch out for those as well. Thank you ever so much once again, Lisa, and thank you to our guests once again. And I suppose all that's left to say is have a lovely evening.
Yeah, have a lovely evening. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.